Welcome to the long-awaited return of Mike's Movie Podcast featuring Evan. And it used to be special guest Adam, but now it's just featuring Adam because you are now part of the Mike's Movie Podcast family.
I'm not ready for that. No one told me about that. I'm not really comfortable with that. I didn't consent to this. This is a non-consensual experience.
Oh, he's rejecting it.
So, well, it is what it is. I've already printed the business cards and T-shirts. So after those all get deprecated, we can revisit changing it. Today, we are talking about the latest motion picture from one of our favorite directors, David Cronenberg. And the movie is Crimes of the Future. I actually do have a question about this movie. And so over the last year or so, I actually have not been watching that many movies for a variety of reasons. I've kind of gotten out of practice, but I think I'm back. And I will say for Crimes of the Future, sketching out the actual plot of the movie, I was having a hard time actually following what exactly was going on plot-wise. Because I know that you had the organ registry department, and I know that you had the drill assassins and whatnot. So I was actually kind of having a hard time following that. So I guess this is a question for Adam. How would you summarize the actual plot and story of the movie?
From start to finish? Well, I will open with, in general, I didn't, but there is one thing you mentioned, which when I went back and watched it a second time, I was like, I must have missed something because I don't really know what's going on with that. And that is, and I don't care about summarizing the plot, the ladies that are killing people, on why is it of their own accord? Do they work for the new Vice guy? Because he says he doesn't know about it, and maybe he's supposed to be lying that he doesn't know about them killing people. But that part, that is a part where I was I literally went back the second time being I'm going to figure this out this time. And was I still don't know, if they're doing that on behalf of the company, because they think it's in their company's interest to not have people be okay with new organ growth. But that is a thing that even watching it twice, I am not clear about. And it doesn't super matter to the, primary small scale plot of the movie, but it does kind of bother me that I don't know the answer to that, which is one of the things you mentioned being confused about.
Okay, got it. So that is good to know that I'm not entirely losing my mind. And then let's just get straight to the end of the movie as well, when they do the live performance art autopsy of the kid, and then they open them up and they pull out the organs, and it's this whole huge shock. I was not following exactly what was going on there.
So what is supposed to be shocking there is that they were expecting to see a whole bunch of weird novel organs related to him being the offspring of the people that do the surgery to be able to eat plastic. But instead, they saw a bunch of tattooed organs, which they know from the organ registry people means that those are someone's been in there surgically, and those are logged organs with someone's tattooed on. And then it is revealed subsequently that Kristen Stewart's character had done that surreptitiously to undermine the shock of a naturally born person having novel organs as a child, because the new Vice people don't want that to be public knowledge. So they hired her to preemptively tattoo the organs so that people would be like, oh, well, he had all kinds of weird surgery. This isn't a, naturally occurring phenomenon.
Okay. So I did not fully catch that either. Evan, were those plot points, am I just the dumb one here, or did you also not fully pick up on those?
It's so funny because I feel I'm having to switch to a different character now, just to give a little bit of backstory. And I'll answer the question, but it's we just had a 1 hour long podcast before the podcast, as they say. We always do that, and that's where all the juicy content is, and no one will ever hear it except for
the us. Important people hear it. All people need to know is that you called Jordan Field Jordan Poole. That's the most salient point.
I want to just get into some Cronenberg talk here, because just as James Woods talked about the new flesh in Videodrome here, I was thinking, Evan, what we had earlier, that's the new camera footage. This is the new camera footage.
It is, but I have grown too much. I don't know what you want to say. I guess have a little bit more decency, and I won't, flaunt it about as if it's a possession of mine. But I just wanted to make it clear that I see, you know, my part on this little show as like, I'm not the one who is the movie person. I actually don't enjoy talking about or hearing about the details of the plot of the movie. I like to just have the tangents and be fun. That said, you asked me if I understood the plot. The same questions you had. I probably understood less of it than you did. Because I'm not a good movie watcher, and B, because I just don't understand stuff. I will say that I thought that the two women technicians killing the Plastic Man had to do with them wanting to preserve some of the integrity of their operation, because and this is my reading of it, that the Plastic Man and his cult had gone rogue and were doing things to bodies that would make some of the devices and shit that the technicians were so obsessed with obsolete. But I wasn't confident in that interpretation.
No, yeah, that is absolutely that. Honestly, that's what I lean towards. It just seems like in general, most stuff in the movie, you can like, there's at least like some dialogue or some corroborating indication. It's not the kind of movie where like there's a bunch of subtext you have to extrapolate from. Most of it is backed up by stuff that you see in the movie. And like what you just said, which I agree makes the most sense, because when the new vice cop says he doesn't know about it, it doesn't seem like we're supposed to think he's lying. It's just like the only thing in the movie that isn't directly addressed. Like it's all the other plot stuff, even if it's like kind of hard to follow, I can go back and be like, oh, when this guy said this, or when this person did this, that what you said, I do think is true, but you can't really prove it with anything we see in the movie.
Right. And they didn't really.
But I think you're right.
Those gals didn't, that was an unresolved thread in the story. They didn't come back. Right? Like what happens to I thought that one was Bjork for the first little bit, but the Bjork looking chick and the whatever.
Well, I think they killed the people they wanted to kill, and now they're back to work for the company.
Yeah. I wanted to say too, this was one of those movies. So like one of the things that I enjoy about getting older and getting to an age that some would call old, is that I no longer feel the compulsion to tie up all the plot threads with a bow. Sometimes I just enjoy being mystified by a movie. And it became, you know, I was cool with that being the experience for this movie. Like I kind of made an internal decision, like I'm not going to stress about figuring it all out. I'm just gonna,
I want to, so just to keep up with the theme of the podcast, where Evan and I just agree on everything, and just we find ways to agree.
Right.
Let me preface my agreement by saying that I kind of had a similar internal switch to another movie we discussed on a previous podcast, which is Mother. And obviously, Mother and this movie are completely different. But in that movie, early on I made the decision to not try to follow the plot, just like kind of and appreciate the experience. Similar with this one, where I felt it was just more visceral and just basically focused on enjoying people getting cut open, is kind of what I was what I was doing there, and I, you know, not trying to worry too much about anything else.
And yeah, Mother is a great example of what I'm talking about, where most stuff in Mother does track with internal logic, but it's never presented to you. So I agree that is also my experience watching Mother, which is why what I'm saying, in pretty much every Cronenberg movie, including this one, it's not like that. And you can like very one-to-one narratively lay stuff out, which is why the motives and on whose behalf the life form where ladies are operating was a thing that bothered me. And I went back and was kind of frustrated I didn't know. Because it's not a movie like Mother, or in general, even though I know what you're saying, Cronenberg in general never skews that open-ended with what whatever's going on in his movies, which I think is why he's a popular, successful director.
He's popular and successful because he closes all the loops.
Not because they're all closed, but at least even if he's going to leave some stuff open at the end, because also like Videodrome, which we're already referencing, that's not closed at the end, but like everything that's led up to that, you can be like, oh, well, this person's doing this because of that. Like there's like a script level narrative flow that you can track and has like a domino of effect. Whereas Mother, you're kind of like, who is this? What are they doing?
Right.
And you can impart your own symbolic analogy to it that makes sense, but it's not laid out like most Cronenberg movies.
Could I ask a question since we're deep in the nerdy part of the podcast?
Do you want to say something offensive? We talked about
No.
Evan getting a little break.
No, I actually have a question for the
Okay.
movie dude, for you two cool dude. Okay, listen, I'm so lucky to be, you guys are fun, you guys are so great. Like, I just love it. I watched the movie. I don't understand. You know, I just love all the.
Well, Evan, I want to interject here real quick.
Oh, I have a serious question.
Sorry.
Please don't interrupt me. I have a question.
What do you think?
I have a question that will help your agenda.
No, what I was saying is I just finished reading this book by Adam Grant called Think Again, and I think you should think again, because I think you know more about movies than you give yourself credit for.
No, I really don't. I really don't. I know more about everything else than you guys by a long shot. Everything, but not sports. I don't know as much.
Hey, movies are everything. All right.
Movies and sports, you guys got me. But when it comes to like ethics, you know,
methods,
stuff, statistical methods, metaphysics, everything. Anyway, so I want to know, since you guys are, as particularly Adam, is in a dialogue, perpetual dialogue with other movie fans, critics, goers. How does this stack up in the David Cronenberg canon against the other shit? Because I've seen maybe half of David Cronenberg's movies, so I don't have an educated opinion about this one.
So are you asking my opinion or consensus opinion?
I was actually asking for the consensus opinion, and if yours is different from that.
I would say
this is a good question, because Adam, I'm interested to hear what you say, because I have a couple initial thoughts.
So yeah, you would like my question, Mike. That's why
let's give Evan a round of applause for a good question.
Let's hear it.
So in my experience as someone obsessively reading professional film critic and letterbox reviews about this ever since both times I went to see it, there are basically two main reactions to it. One is what I expected my reaction to be, and the second is what my reaction actually is. So the first that is what I expected based on the preview, the plot description, etc. When I heard this movie announced, saw the trailer, I was like, oh, I'm absolutely sure I'm going to have a great time watching that, and that it is going to fulfill the check boxes one expects from a stereotypical iconic Cronenberg experience. However, the man has been soft retired for nearly a decade. He spent the decade before that going out of his way to distance himself from body horror, which he tells people to shut up about every time they try and get him to talk about it because he doesn't like that term. And I was like, so the fact that he's coming back from soft retirement and like doing a body horror movie that he's been trying to not be associated with for the second half of his career, I was like, you know what? He's old. He's probably going to be doing a greatest hits victory lap, and it's going to feel good, and I'm going to have a good time, but it's not really going to substantively elevate my any of the whatever themes he's been working with. It's kind of going to be a rehash, but I'm going to have a good time with it. That's what I expected. And there's definitely people that think that, and I think that's a totally valid interpretation. I was totally floored and felt like it was like a capitulation of his entire career, and like dips into almost, I haven't seen all of his movies either. I've seen 80-90%. There's a couple I haven't seen. Of the ones I've seen, this at least in some way dips into stuff going on in all of them in a way that felt like a career summation, in a way that like really enriched my relationship. Because like at this point in his career, I'm like, yeah, I was into that as a teenager. He used to be a pretty cool guy, but now he's old and he doesn't really care anymore. But I was like, oh no, it gets like latter era George Carlin specials. It makes me think like, oh, maybe it is possible to be fucking 80 years old and not be like a brain dead nursing home patient. You know what I mean? So I was enlivened by it. And I would say, in my personal opinion, which some other people definitely share, it's like not his best, but in the top tier of his movies.
I appreciated what you said about it in your letterbox review, and I just wanted to say I also appreciated the score. Again, I don't have as many reference points, but I thought the sound of the film was compelling as well.
So Howard Shore is someone who started with him. Howard Shore's career began with Cronenberg, and Cronenberg's ascension is what got Howard Shore into Hollywood doing Lord of the Rings and bullshit. And Howard Shore is a guy who has done a lot of great scores. Most of the ones I like are for Cronenberg movies. But like, I wasn't paying attention in the credits. Against stereotype of myself, I did not read every credit in the opening credits, so I didn't see that it was him. And the whole time I was like, wow, he must have got some new guy to do the score. This is way too like
Edgy.
modern and like
Yeah.
not. But then at the end, when I saw it was Howard Shore, I was like, way to go, Howard! Another old guy that's not just doing boring old shit.
That's just Howard being Howard. He's full of surprises, and he's a guy who can still wow you, still shock you.
I was in our thread here, and I know this is a movie podcast, not a text thread podcast, but in our movie thread, I did make the comment, I'm sure that movie has a great score, and Shore spelled Hore.
Yeah, and let's all give Mike a round of applause for a good pun.
Adam, Evan, to your question about like kind of the Cronenberg canon. So if I were to pick like the top 3 movies that Cronenberg has directed, I'm thinking, and Adam too, I'm thinking about this a bit more from a mainstream perspective of like what are the most well-known, highly regarded Cronenberg movies from a mainstream perspective. The 3 that would come to my mind, and I would say in this order, I'll commit to this order. The Fly, Naked Lunch, A History of Violence, I think would be the top 3 from a more mainstream perspective.
I will say, as someone who's been talking about him a lot with normal people, Naked Lunch, I agree that Naked Lunch is one of the great ones. People don't know about Naked Lunch.
Okay.
Naked Lunch is not, in terms of mainstream awareness, that's not up there.
Okay. And I'll say, I think for Naked Lunch, I mean, what would probably influence my my awareness of Naked Lunch is that there's a episode of The Simpsons when like Bart and his friends, they go to see a movie and they go see Naked Lunch, and then like they were like, oh, that movie's
I don't usually get your Simpsons references, but I do know the one you're talking about.
Yeah. So that was one as well. So then, but I think A History of Violence, though, Oscar nominated for Best Supporting Actor in Adapted Screenplay, and I think that was also with Viggo Mortensen, post Lord of the Rings trilogy. So that one, if I had to wager a guess, outside of The Fly, that's probably the most well known of the Cronenberg movies, more mainstream.
Because it was a bigger studio release and an adaptation of a Stephen King book, The Dead Zone is up there for mainstream, at least in our age cohort. Younger people don't care about Dead Zone, but that was a decent-sized hit, and it was a wider release with Christopher Walken, a bigger name actor, a Stephen King book. Dead Zone is also up there. And related to the Simpsons thing, you guys will appreciate this as people that know me. I've been rabid to talk to people about this at work, etc. And one guy at work, right after it came out, was like, hey man, I'm really bored. I just want to go out and do something this weekend. Do you know any concerts or movies or anything? And I was like, well, I really like Crimes of the Future, the new Cronenberg movie. And he was like, oh, Cronenberg. And I was immediately excited that a normal person at work knew Cronenberg was. And I was like, yeah, Cronenberg. It's his first movie in like a decade. It's really exciting. And then the guy was like, yeah, he's like the body horror guy, right? And I was like, that's absolutely correct. You're correctly identifying the person we're talking about. And he was like, yeah, I only really know him because there's like Rick and Morty jokes about him. And I was like, the idea of only having a context for Cronenberg because of Rick and Morty jokes is, I'm not gonna. No offense to this coworker who I won't.
And I'll just take this opportunity to say, I fucking hate Rick and Morty. I find it to be the most obnoxious cartoon. There was a minute there where I thought maybe I could like it. I like the way it looks. It is so obnoxious, and I hate it. And I just want to put that on the recording.
Mike, what do you think about Rick and Morty?
When it first came out, like the first 2 seasons, I actually watched the episodes and I laughed a lot while watching it. I know that there was there's an episode that probably the most well-known Rick and Morty one is like Pickle Rick, where Rick turns himself into a pickle. Like I haven't really watched any episodes after that, but in the first couple seasons, I watched it and I enjoyed it. I mean, I haven't watched it.
Are you saying that you disagree with that?
Well, we established in the secret pre-podcast that Mike and I actually disagree about a lot, and we always have. And there was a time in our relationship where that caused a lot of friction. Mike and I have come a long way. We've done without therapy and without drugs.
Ooh, good. Let's talk about this. Do you think those people have in life?
we've gone from bickering, fighting, dominance, struggling apes to two loving companions who make time for, Mike and I, this is true. If anybody else listens to this out there, Mike and I have been friends for over 20, almost 25 years. 25 years.
That's right.
And we live 3,000 miles apart, but we make time.
Did you measure it? Are you sure about that measurement? Did you check that? Or are you trusting Google? You might want to check. Next time you do a visit, do a measure.
It's an estimate. I used.
How far do we live apart? Do you know how far apart we live? Is that how much?
You and Adam, I would guess you and I are about 950 miles apart. Maybe.
No, I think. Well, we're talking about Vermont to North Carolina.
Yeah.
So as a point of reference, I know that it's about 816 miles from Milwaukee to Atlanta. So I would say like Raleigh to Vermont.
That might be more like 800 miles.
Yeah, 800 miles. It's just a short hike up the Appalachian Trail.
Take old rickety old 95
right
up through Washington, D.C. Say hi to Paul Revere on your way.
I think we only have one interstate in Vermont, and it's 89.
Why don't you guys come down to North Carolina? I got this whole house.
I got birds to take care of out here. I can't leave my birds. I love my bird, my best friend.
I thought I was going to get to go to Seattle again in August, and then they pulled the rug out from underneath me.
Who did? Who did that? Give me their name.
People who were going to pay for it. But,
CIA.
The cheapest flight. Okay, here's another Price is Right. The number guessing game. The cheapest flight that I could book to Seattle on August 4th.
How far ahead of time?
It was June, let's say June 20th. I sit down, I'm going to book a flight, round trip. I need to go from Raleigh, Durham to Seattle, Tacoma. So 6-7 weeks out. What do you think the cheapest flight?
I've never been to the airport of Raleigh, Durham. Is that a pretty big airport?
It is. It's probably about the size of, not quite, I'm trying to think the comparable.
I compared to Sacramento.
Yeah, that's probably right.
Okay, so not big, but not small, kind of medium.
It's about like Seattle, Mike, maybe a little smaller in Seattle.
Yeah, geez, I think Seattle's expanded.
Right.
So
maybe like when I lived there, Seattle.
So I'm assuming that you're high because of the way it was introduced. So assuming I'm skewing high, I'm gonna say round trip. We're talking round trip.
Both ways, baby. There and back.
I'm gonna go crazy. I'm gonna say $750.
Keep guessing.
Higher?
Much higher.
Over 1,000.
$1,200. Cheapest flight.
Well, here's some context for you. A couple months ago, I had to get plane tickets from Burlington, Vermont, which is a nowheresville tiny airport, all the way to a different nowheresville tiny airport on the island of Sardinia off the coast of Italy for my brother's wedding.
Oh.
How much do you think those tickets cost?
$2,000.
And I would tell you, it is Burlington to Washington Dulles to Frankfurt, Germany, to I think to Sardinia. There might be another leg to like Milan and then Sardinia. What's your guess?
That sucks. $2,200.
Very, very, very close. You saying that like Durham to Seattle was $1,200 makes me feel better about the fact they were like $2,500.
That sucks. I should mention though, I'm an idiot. I forgot to say I only fly Delta. So if I wouldn't have picked Delta, I think I probably could have got it for $1,000. But still,
I prefer Delta. If I have a choice, I do Delta. If I did that, I couldn't have even got from Burlington to Sardinia. Would not have been possible.
Evan, I know that when you came out here back in November, December, that I think your round trip flight was like $250.
I know, it's crazy.
Yeah, so I think we need to get more airplanes out there in the friendly skies.
Yeah, do you guys want to talk about the price of gasoline while we're just talking about prices? How about the prices? Gasoline is crazy.
You know what I think is even more outrageous is the price of blueberries these days. It used to be $2.49 a pound, and now it's $3.19 a pound.
I used to be able to go out to the mall and get a round trip ticket to Seattle, pint of blueberries and an abortion, $3.99, all covered in one fell swoop. Now you can't get any of that stuff for less than $1,000. Abortion, you got to go up to Canada. Justin Trudeau himself will shove a 9-iron up your ass and give you an abortion. That's
my sister lives in Canada, and I was just talking to her. We were talking about our brother's wedding, and we were making jokes about it. And she was saying there's a really big thing in all ways in Canada these days to do land acknowledgements. I was thinking maybe we should do land acknowledgements on the podcast.
what?
Wait, what is a land acknowledgement?
What is that?
A land acknowledgement is when you're like giving it there's some kind of event where a person is giving a speech or whatever, and you open it by being like and this is a loose approximation. You'll have to look it up to get a better one. It's something like we would like to first acknowledge that this land originally belonged to the Abenaki people and it was taken from them. We'd like to honor them before we do any of our stupid bullshit.
That makes me so unhappy.
I thought you'd like that. I was hoping. I can't believe you hadn't heard of it. I'm glad I got to bring that into your life. Because if we did it, we all live in separate places. We have to do 3 different land acknowledgements.
You guys, I think I'm gonna have to move to like northern Canada and just start chopping wood till I die.
Yeah.
I got a friend up there. I got a friend in Yellowknife, Northwest Territories.
Oh, really? I'm intrigued by Yellowknife. Why is the airport code there?
So I'll share a little. This is a little.
That's not YYZ. What'd you say the airport code was?
No, YYZ. First of all, it's YYZ. All right.
YYZ is Toronto.
That's right. You mean YYZ? And then
Anyway, that's not the airport to get to Yellowknife.
Well, Yellowknife is
YYZ. You got a long drive to Yellowknife.
No, Yellowknife is. I think Yellowknife is YZF.
So I've had Yellowknife on my saved weather. You can pick your cities to check on your weather. And I have always had Yellowknife ever since I got an iPhone. I was one of the early adopters of the iPhone, which I am very proud of. In fact, I remember the day I got my first iPhone.
Oh
boy, this is when I go Ahab.
After the iPhone, I want to go back to the land acknowledgement part.
I'm not done talking about Yellowknife. Why Yellowknife? I don't care about the iPhone. Tell
because
me why
it's like the farthest north you can go and still have.
Here's the crazy part about my friend that lives in Yellowknife. I knew him in North Shore, Vermont as a teenager. He grew up in North Shore, Vermont, which is north of where I grew up, very close to the border. He has dual citizenship because I think he was born in Canada. His mom worked in Canada. She commuted across the border. Anyway, he went to school in Canada for environmental sciences, and then he got the job he got, which is why he's in Yellowknife, is I forget his title, but basically, loosely, he works for a diamond mine way north of Yellowknife called the Ekati Diamond Mine, which looks like the Sarlacc pit. I highly recommend looking up pictures of the Ekati Diamond Mine, but it's so far north that it's completely dissociated from any other parts of society or civilization. So any waste materials that they generate in the mining operation have to either be transported back to a landfill or incinerated or somehow, used on site. And he is in charge of deciding what happens to what gets incinerated, what has to be shipped back to be disposed some other way. And so because Yellowknife is so far south of Ekati, they do like a 2 weeks on, 2 weeks off thing when you work there. Because when you go there, you can only get there for their private planes that the diamond mine operates. So you take a flight from Yellowknife all the way up to Ekati, you work for 2 weeks, take a flight back, and then you have 2 weeks off back in Yellowknife. But Yellowknife, as you're saying, is the farthest north point. So that's where anyone that works there, that's the closest city where you work, where you live in, if that's where your commute is, up to the Ekati diamond mine. Shout out to Dustin. I was just thinking about Dustin today because when we were in high school and it would be really hot like it is today, sometimes Dustin would freestyle rap. And whenever it's a hot day, I think of one of his best freestyle raps of all time, which is, "It's getting hot, I'm feeling sticky. David S. Ware's second drummer was Whit Dickey." David S. Ware being a free jazz musician that we are a big fan of. And I never knew, he would always be, that was it. You never know what references, it's like Eminem or something. You never know what these references are going to come up with next.
So do you think David Cronenberg has ever been to Yellowknife?
I don't know. He seems like a pretty urban guy. Oh, here's some trivia. I found out incidentally reading about the movie. So David Cronenberg has several children. One of his daughter is a photographer, a commercial photographer, and one of her most famous works is the photo on the cover of the Drake record where he's sitting on that Tower in Toronto.
Mhm.
So that's David Cronenberg's daughter took the cover of that Drake record.
The tower in Toronto that is like
I don't know Drake. I don't know what that album's called, but I like to think that means David Cronenberg and Drake have hung out at the album release party or something.
right.
That the Ikati diamond mine cost the Arctic Canadian Diamond Company $500 million. You believe that?
Hey, need those diamonds. Give me the diamonds.
And their annual revenue is 720 million. They're currently 1.2 billion dollars in debt.
Well,
Well,
it's really the thing is like
better check on us.
it's really all about the cash flow. As long as they have a positive cash flow and they're able to meet all their obligations, then they're going to be able to get that premium AAA rating.
That's the same with me. I'm just like the Arctic
They're
Canadian
able to do
Diamond Mine. My cash flow is like thick. It's throbbing.
My cash flow.
It's throbbing. It's so thick it doesn't need a foreskin. Which, by the way, I want to shout out to my friend Jill, who is going to hate me for using her name on this podcast. But she is the friend I was mentioning in the text thread who expressed.
Is it my aunt Jill, who's in her mid-70s?
It is indeed Adam's aunt Jill, who is a good friend of mine, and we're very close. And she told me that she has a prep. She prefers an uncirc.
Did she say why?
We did discuss that, but for the most part, I was just concerned with her. And as I
I
said,
just want to know why, because I can speculate, but I'm curious what her rationale was.
she claimed that the uncirc provided more. I mean, like, what's the possible reason? Like, it felt better because there's more shit going on. Because I guess you're weird. Like, it's like having it's like the aardvark snout, kind of like greased up, rolling around back and forth. So you got both the shaft and this kind of like fungal tube thing. It's just more texture, I think, was her argument. To which I came back and said, well, you see, the problem is the foreskin.
I don't think
Covers.
it's technically an argument if she's stating a preference. It's you.
Yeah,
I
right.
think you're interpreting someone stating a preference as an argument.
As we established in the Secret Pre-podcast, people think they have these preferences and beliefs, but they really don't. And I can tell. I have the same
only Evan knows everyone's true beliefs.
I can tell. And I told her, like, look, I know you think you have this weird foreskin thing, but like, no, you don't like it. You don't want that. Anyway.
You were like, let me show you, Jill. I'll show you how it's done. I got cash flow.
No, I would never do that. But so there you guys go. I just wanted you to know that. I want to throw you a bone. So you're not alone out there. There are women who will tolerate aardvarks now.
I don't know how I got lumped into this conversation because this is like a debate between like you and Adam. So I'm just the kind of outside observer.
Not a debate.
I selfishly brought it up on the podcast, Mike, and I know you didn't want me to talk about it, but I am.
I don't mind if you talked about it. I'm just mentioning that this is.
So here's what I want to circle back to what we were talking about before. I just want to hear. Evan said you estimate roughly half the Cronenberg movies of his movies you've seen. Mike, what would you say? And then also, just off the top of your head, which ones? Since we've all talked about mainstream perception, what personal favorites of the ones you've seen you have?
So I'll just list off the ones that Cronenberg movies that I know that I've seen. So there's like the Dead Zone, Videodrome, Scanners, History of Violence, Eastern Promises, Naked Lunch. Let's see. There is also Maps to the Stars, Crimes of the Future, obviously, The Fly, and then Existenz, which I actually saw for the first time on Thursday night. I actually made a point to watch that.
And what would you say your favorites are?
Well, so I'm just trying to think if I've missed. Oh, Crash. Don't want to leave Crash.
That's Evan's favorite.
Oh, yeah, Naked Lunch. I don't know if I mentioned Naked Lunch already. There might be some that I'm missing there. So again, I'm not about quantifying things, so I'm not going to like list them. I'm just going to kind of like mention some of the ones that I have. So the Fly is a personal favorite of mine too. I know it's one of the more popular ones. And I will say that like one of the first like random memories I have of watching a part of the movie was my dad was watching The Fly, and I saw like the very, very end of it when Brundlefly gets meshed with the machine and they get shot in the face. Like that was like one of the scenes. And like it's like watching that like with no context and having no idea what was going on is a unique experience I will never be able to replicate. So that one's up there. I'll say just this there's some like recency bias going on with this one here, but I very much enjoyed Existenz last night. Thought that was good. I mean, and I guess the proof is in the pudding. I do the one physical disc that I have of a Cronenberg movie. I have the Criterion Collection version of Videodrome, so that is also high up on the list. Oh, Dead Ringers is also one that I forgot to mention that I've seen. So
most of them. I have only seen a couple more that you didn't list already.
Yeah, have you seen Cosmopolis?
Oh yeah,
I've not seen that one.
The only ones I haven't seen are the Freud one, A Dangerous Method, M Butterfly, and I think there's one more I'm forgetting. All the early ones, the pre-Rabid ones and the race car one, I saw on like a bootleg VHS when I was like 15. So I would fail a test about them, but technically at an early age, I pulled a Shane and pulled the blinds on this nice summer day and focused on them, but I wouldn't remember anything about them now. And now I would like to go to Evan and say, Evan, which are your favorites?
There are two movies that were on Mike's list that before this podcast I didn't know were David Cronenberg movies. But so here are the ones that I can recall that I've seen. So obviously Crime of the Future.
You're saying that's a favorite?
Oh wait, do you want me to just?
Oh no, yeah, sorry, I forgot. You're listing all of them first.
Let me give you the rundown, and then I'll give you my favorites. So Crimes of the Future. I keep wanting to say Crime of the Century, like the Supertramp record, Mike.
The Supertramp. That's Adam's favorite band, by the way.
So you guys are both familiar with the Wes Craven Last House on the Left movie. There was a poster for a retitling of that movie called Crime of the Century, which is just a voluptuous naked woman's torso framed just so the nipples are out of frame, and there's just like blood coming down her abdomen. It's an incredible poster.
I wake up to that image every morning and smile. So The Fly, and I have a story about The Fly. Is he the Brood?
Yeah, the Brood. That's right.
Seen the Brood, like that. Videodrome and Naked Lunch, although I cannot remember much about either of those movies. I know I watched them during a hot, sweaty summer drunken time. Dead Ringers, which might be my favorite, though I can't really tell you why, other than that I just really like Jeremy Irons and find him attractive. And what else? I didn't see Crash, but I know it's about crashing your car and having sex. I think that's it. Oh, I saw The Dangerous Method, which I did not know was a David Cronenberg movie. A quick little
review of that one. I've never seen it, just because I don't like Nightly and shit. Fuck out of here.
You might like you might like it after I give you this little anecdote. So it was rented back in the day where you still Netflixed discs. And I don't remember which person I was dating, but as you may know, I had a pattern of dating women who all had the same exact diagnosis, and it was borderline personality disorder. And there are like 5 women with that exact problem. And I don't remember which one it was. I have a feeling I think I could guess, but we had rented this movie because I was interested in the Freud Jung stuff, and I liked Michael Fassbender. I didn't give a shit about Keira Knightley. And we put it in, and it triggered this woman to we had to turn it off because it was too triggering for her. And that's all I'll say. But
can you tell me what was triggering?
It's Keira Knightley. Her character is a woman of that ilk, although she is severely troubled and has lots of outbursts, and there are lots of scenes her being apprehended in ways that are not easy to watch. It's not easy to watch, right? So I guess that's the Cronenberg part of it, but I didn't think it was good. I just remember, I never watched the second half of it because we had to fucking shut it off. And I think we had to put on the blue, the Blue Planet series. That was a pacifying thing for this gal, which
I think it's a pacifying thing for a lot of people.
it is. It's great. Who doesn't like that? But so that's what we did. And I don't, this was like 10 years ago. I don't know. Anyway, the favorites would be Dead Ringers, The Fly, which I'd forgotten was David Cronenberg, but watched when it was one of the, my dad had taped these movies off HBO in the 80s. And so my first time seeing The Fly was on this grainy VHS copy, which I think is a good way to watch that movie. And yeah, Dead Ringers and The Fly. Those are the only two I'd put up there. None of the, I mean, like I enjoyed Crimes of the Century, but like I don't feel like I need to have it be on my top, whatever. So
You said the wrong way, which I like.
Crime of the Future. I did like The Brood. Brood might be my number 3. That's the one where she starts with the thing on her neck.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
No, well, yeah.
And
The
then
Brood is definitely one of the good ones. The Brood, for me, there's a difference between the ones where I'm like, wow, that was an extremely powerful movie that I never have an urge to rewatch. And there's other ones where I'm like, wow, I want to watch this all the time. I watch it over and over. The Brood, I'm like, that is an overwhelmingly intense movie that I don't really have an urge to revisit very often, but that doesn't mean it's not one of the best ones.
The Brood is the one with the Native American Wendigo character.
Who are thinking of the Manitou?
I'm thinking of I'm getting those two confused, but I
Because
did
they
watch.
both involve a growth that people come out of. It's
See,
funny, the Manitou came first, and no one knows or cares about the Manitou. It's a piece of genre trash. But technically, one could say the Brood is a ripoff of the Manitou.
See, you just need that. Sometimes this is like I'm like the idiot who sits at the poker table and wins. That's how I feel right now,
But
Yeah.
so wait, now I want to know: have you actually seen the Brood, or you just
maybe not? I thought I had. I'm pretty sure I
the
had.
Brood? The Brood is
I know that you-
overtly
I
this
remember you had something to
divorce
do with
movie where like the woman starts to have growths that become sentient demon children that go kill people she has like resentment towards.
Maybe I didn't see the Brood.
You would love it. It's really good.
Is Jeff Goldblum in it?
No, it's Canadian. It's Canadian nobodies. Oliver Reed is the leader of a cult that like has people harness their emotion. Here's how the Brood is related to Crimes of the Future. In the Brood, intense emotions which are not expressed force your body to express them in a way that you are not dealing with them. And in the movie, Oliver Reed leads a cult which encourages people to get the emotions out that way rather than the normal.
Okay, yes, I saw it, but it's been a long time, and I did confuse it with the Manitou.
It makes sense that you would confuse them.
So then, yeah, Dead Ringers and The Fly would be the favorite.
Yeah, Dead Ringers is another one that is like The Brood, where it is an overwhelmingly intense movie that I don't have an urge to revisit. But yeah, I have revisited. I just rewatched that one, like I told you guys, and I have watched it more than The Brood.
I need to see this.
Because I don't have a twin. It's not as relatable as like a relationship breakdown movie like The Brood. But yeah, it's that there. A lot of people make a big fuss about like the gore elements of Cronenberg movies, which never really bothered me. It's like, the stuff, the emotional stuff is what gets me, the stuff in like The Brood. And in that way, there's some of that in Dead Ringers is hard to watch, but like not as extreme as The Brood. Dead Ringers is one of my favorites. I would say my favorites are Dead Ringers and Existence and Naked Lunch prior to this. And I think I can't really say Crimes of the Future is a favorite because I can't say that soon. I gotta let it simmer. But it could, of the ones that's been long enough, I would say Dead Ringers, Naked Lunch, and Existence are my favorite. And I think Existence is the overlooked one because in many ways, Existence is basically an updated version of Videodrome, but people like Videodrome more because it has an aesthetic people associate with 80s horror shit more, whereas Existence is less overtly horror and has less like horror aesthetic. But I think Existence, he did it because he was like, things have changed in technology in the world where like, I'm going to update Videodrome. And that was Existence was effectively the last body horror one until Crimes of the Future. And in that way, it kind of felt at the time, I was like, this is his final statement on these topics. And that's why it's one of my favorites.
I gotta see that.
Like you just watched it. What's your fresh take off of seeing it for the first time?
Fresh take, having seen it from the first time. I like the comparison that you make of the Cronenberg movies. Of like kind of divided them into two camps. The camp that's like, oh wow, I really appreciate this movie here, but I'm not really eager to watch it again. I would kind of put something like Crash as in that category, where and that as well. I think that something like The Dead Zone and then Existence, I would put in that the second category of movies that would be worth watching. Worth watching again and again. No, I liked I like the just in terms of a movie watching experience. I enjoyed Existence, because I think that when I say movie going experience, I think like it had like an actual like plot that you were following along, and I think that it also just continued with the themes of Videodrome as well. I will say on this, it did make me think a bit about and like draw a pretty direct comparison in two ways towards Crimes of the Future. One of them is that like in Existence, like the pods that were used to like play the games, where I think that I have to imagine like Cronenberg like had those in a storage unit. He's like, you know what, I'm going to use that pod in Crimes of the Future.
I forgot to look up if it's the same people that made them, because if it's not, it's an impressive exertion of directorial agency if it's different people made them, because like you're saying, it looks like the same company made all of those objects.
Yeah, and there's something too which I do appreciate with the Cronenberg movies, of a certain like grossness to it. Like, so for Existence, like the umbilical cords that you would like shove into your spinal cord, like to play the game, just like certain like kind of like organic grossness to it, which reminds me a little bit of like Doctor Who and like some of like the kind of organic science fiction. But also, anyway, the other comparison with Crimes of the Future though is that you have as we find out at the end of Existence, you have the Jennifer Jason Leigh and Jude Law characters who are like opposed to the new reality of Existence, which of course I think draws a comparison towards the anti-synthetic beings in Crimes of the Future. So I guess I do appreciate just those themes and how they appear throughout the work of Cronenberg.
And yeah, the funny one is, so you'd think Dead Ringers is pretty dissociated from any of that stuff, because like there is no like special effects body horror stuff in it besides the instruments that the crazy guy makes. But having just rewatched Dead Ringers, there's literally a scene in Dead Ringers where one of the doctors is chit-chatting with one of the patients, and he's like he's commending her on having an abnormal uterus. And he says, like, I've often thought we should have a beauty pageant for inner beauty, which then literally comes to fruition in Crimes of the Future. Oh, and also there's a part when he's jealous because he thinks the lady with an abnormal uterus is having an affair, and he thinks he's talking to the person she's having an affair with, which isn't true. But his reaction to that is to be like, her uterus has a trifurcate opening, which is technically a mutation, so you're fucking a mutant. Which also feels very of a piece with Crimes of the Future and other movies of his. I also want to say a funny thing related to the body horror thing is I saw a meme on Instagram when Crimes of the Future was coming out and people were excited about it, where a person was making fun of Cronenberg fans, which I love to be targeted and made fun of, and it's an opportunity I don't have as often as I wish, and is one of the main reasons I appreciate having on this podcast.
My eyes lit up when you said that.
But the meme, do you guys know what I'm talking about? If I talk about Wojaks, it's an archetypal meme character, the guy with the beard that's like overly excited. You know what I'm talking about? It doesn't matter. A Wojak is a type of meme drawing where it's an overexcited guy with a beard, typically pointing behind him is one of his iconic poses. So it was a bunch of those guys. And then the text that had been inserted was like, oh my God, new Cronenberg movie. He put a new orifice in some other part of the body. It's a motif. It's kind of gross. It's kind of transgressive to put an orifice in a different part of the body. And the idea being like, what do you get? You put a new orifice, we're supposed to get excited again. And I appreciate, because like what Mike was saying, you know, you're like, oh, in Existence, you like put it in your spine. And then in this was like, oh, someone licks inside your stomach. And it makes me think of when to go to a deep throwback to Mike's Movie Podcast I can't remember, I think it was Alien Covenant, where instead of coming out of your chest, it comes out of your back when you get impregnated with the alien, where it's like, hey guys, we're brainstorming here. What's kind of the same thing, but different enough that people will think it's exciting and new. And I do think that is a valid critique of Cronenberg, which of course misses the substantive point of the underlying thematics. But anyway, I enjoy, it's rare to have that niche of a meme make fun of an opinion I hold.
I do know the meme. I think it's a versatile meme as well.
No, yeah, that's what I'm saying. There are many Wojaks, but this was a usage of that applied specifically to people being excited about a new Cronenberg movie. And now that we're really deep into this, I have one other story I wanted to share, which is me going out on a limb because I'm making fun of a person that I work with. So there's a guy, this is again, and it's something for you guys appreciate as someone that knows me. I'm desperate to talk about this shit. No one knows about the shit, talks about the shit. There's one guy at work who I probably complained about other times. I won't go into it. But anytime we've talked about movies, this is a young man. This is a mid-20s man, a very self-confident mid-20s man who identifies, because we all know that you're allowed to identify as whatever you want now, whether it's true or not. He identifies as someone into obscure stuff. He is not, but he identifies as such regardless. And anytime we talk about movies, he'll be like, yeah, I'm into weird movies. And I'm like, well, what are we talking about here? That's a very broad term. And anytime I've pushed the issue, he's been like, you know, like body horror stuff. And I'm like, okay, I haven't really pushed deeper because we all know that was invented to apply to Cronenberg, and people retroactively apply to, you know, movies predating Cronenberg, and people talk about Titan as a body horror, but ultimately it's a Cronenberg term. That's not controversial. You can look on Wikipedia, anywhere. If you're talking about body horror, you're in some degree talking about David Cronenberg. And so I was like, oh, okay, so he's into Cronenberg movies. That's cool. Where we share that in common. So when this movie came out, I was very excited about it. I went to go see it. I thought it was great. And then so I saw him at work the next week, and I was like, hey, did you go see Crimes of the Future? And he was like, no. And I was like, oh, if you don't know, it's the new Cronenberg movie. It's his first movie in like a decade. It's really great. You should go check it out. And he's like, who's David Cronenberg? And I was like, the body horror guy. And he was like, what did he do? And then I was like, I was like, well, starting in chronological order from theatrically distributed movies, and I did the whole thing. And he was like, I think I saw The Fly. And I was like, what the fuck are you talking about if you name drop body horror every time we talk about movies and you maybe saw The Fly? And he was like, oh, you know that movie Kubo, which is like a Flying Lotus Adult Swim cartoon, a gross out cartoon movie, which is one of like two movies he's ever referenced, despite going out of his way to claim to be into obscure weird movies. And I was like, okay, and what else? And he was like, I don't know, is Eraserhead body horror? And then I said what I said, which is like, well, no, technically it was made to apply to David Cronenberg, and people retroactively talk about Eraserhead, but really that's not really it didn't exist as a term back when that movie came out. And just blows my mind what the kids these days.
Unforgivable.
Yeah. So I didn't say his name. I doubt he'll ever see this, but I basically expressed this reaction to him in real time.
Well,
but
when he's talking about like being like into obscure movies, what level of conviction was he talking about?
I may have told this story before. The first time he said that was I was trying to talk other normal people at work into going to see Titan when I was very excited about Titan. And he hadn't heard of it. And I was like, oh, you should check it out. You won't shut up about body horror. You'll love Titan. And he was like, oh yeah, I'll definitely check it out. I'm really into weird movies. So let me know if you ever need a recommendation. And I literally dropped what I was doing, turned around.
Jumped out the window.
No, that was that, because that is unlike the situation where I said I jumped out the window. I was like, okay, let's hear it. I'm ready right now. Hit me with your best shot, fucker. And he was like, well, and his response was, well, I don't know. You put me on the spot. I can't think of something that's on my head. I was like, you literally just offered to recommend me a weird movie if I'm into weird movies.
You brought this kid up on the podcast before. Now listen,
Yeah,
this
correct.
could be you were like that when you were 24.
Absolutely fucking not. I could have named every Cronenberg movie that had come out up to date at that point when I was fucking 16 years old.
He's just. By the way, you gave me the exact reaction I wanted from that. That was like full blown.
What frustrates me is when I met him, I thought that. I was like, hey, this is a young man of similar interest, possibly analogous to my own. I would have been very excited to meet a like-minded individual who is older and interested in the same things. And I have been repeatedly, catastrophically disappointed every time I try and commiserate with him on any shared niche interests. But this is the most egregious. To say body horror every time we talk about movies and then not know who Cronenberg is and maybe have seen The Fly.
What you got
is, as you said, I quote, unforgivable.
What you got to do, Adam, is invite him over to your house for like an all-day movie marathon.
Oh, you better believe the first time we talked about stuff, he was like, maybe we should get a beer or something. And I said, no, I don't hang out with people outside of work, which is what I tell everyone.
Come on, man. Listen.
I have other obligations like this podcast. I can't have some guy that doesn't know shit trying to suck my dick over here. I got a podcast.
You're a tough customer though, man. That's why I always say, like, I always tell when I'm talking to my brothers, like, honestly, I have no idea why Adam even like talks to me at all, because I seem to be the epitome of like everything you hate in a potential friend.
But we both love high performance guitar so much that it overpowers.
That has to be it. Right?
There's a vinyl that I think that you'd like, Adam, which is Surfing with the Alien without the lead guitar track.
I think share a little vignette from Mike's recent visit to Chapel Hill, where I came upon, we were looking through my records, and Nick Johnson, and I can't remember if it was Nick or Mitchell or both, they gave me the vinyl Surfing with the Alien, all leads stripped. So it's no vocal to begin with and no lead guitar. And we put it on, and we listened to the first couple tracks, and I was walking over to take it off the turntable. And Mike's like, hold on a second. I wouldn't mind hearing at least one more song off that record. And so we listened to a third. But even after 3, even you were done.
Yeah. So you were saying you couldn't even endure the whole album stripped of solo.
I think
isn't that kind of what a Forest Fire record is like? Oh no.
Well, no, there's leads, right? I mean, like
yes, that's true.
The whole point of the vinyl is for people like me to needle on top of, to wheedle and needle and noodle.
That reminds me, you talking about the point of the record being for you to do the solos over. Did either of you watch the Norm Macdonald special he recorded alone in his house before he died? It's really good. It's really weird to watch him just sit in front of his computer and do his whole stand-up set. But what Evan just described reminds me of my favorite part of the new Norm special is he's talking about the experience of masturbating. And he's like, yeah, it's funny because like you're doing it, but you got to like imagine something else is happening while you're doing it. And then like you kind of snap out of it when you're done. And you're like, oh, there's no lady here. It's just me touching myself. And then he talks about like, yeah, no one fantasizes it about themselves touching themselves. And Evan playing solos over someone else's record very much reminded me of the Norm Macdonald description of the mental gymnastics of the experience of masturbation.
Well, there's a lot of similarity to what I do between masturbation and what I do on the guitar. We'll just say that.
And that they're both virtuosic.
And that they're both just beautiful. You can't get enough. And it just turns everybody on. Anybody who sees it can't get enough. And no, I haven't been playing much guitar. Those days are gone.
No, don't say that. You say that you think the podcast is not going to come back either. The guitar is always going to come back. The guitar and the podcast are the two pillars that hold the stability of your life.
What you need to get, Evan, what you need to do is on your right hand get guitars, on your left hand podcast.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I don't know which one. It's tough to say. Like, it's tough to serve two mistresses, but It's my cross to bear. Guys, I'm in Ahab mode, okay?
Yeah. What do you want to talk about? Give us some
Well,
spice. Give us light the flame, light the fuse to get you out of that rut with any topic.
No, see, that's the problem. That's why
Take a solo. Take a solo right
that's
now.
why the formula doesn't work. You put me on the spot when I'm in Ahab mode and I don't have anything to say. I'm done talking about the movie. I thought it was fine. I liked it.
Okay, here. How about this? Have you watched, what was the, either since then or most recently before then, what was the next most recent movie you watched besides Crime?
I never remember what the fuck I watched. What did I watch?
Or a television show, if that makes it easier.
I had gone to the movies. What did I see?
Oh yeah, Escape from New York, right?
No, that's coming. That's 4th of July, baby. And I'm debating. There are still tickets available, but I don't know if I'm enough of a macho man to do it. But they're showing Escape from LA directly after.
Ooh, I mean, why not? If you're
I
ever
know.
going to watch it again, it's going to be in a theater right after Escape from. That's kind of an insane way to do it. To go right from
You
LA.
reminded me what I wanted to talk about. I actually have notes right in front of me. What the fuck am I even talking about? See, that's how
I'll tell you right now, this is the first podcast in the video era where I don't have notes. I'm going free improv here.
I only take notes during the podcast because I write stuff down that so I don't forget. Because
you have to take notes because when you're not talking, you can't pay attention to us. So you have to write something of your own thoughts down while we're talking.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. And if I'm not doing that, I'm surfing the internet, doing my email. I'm making money while you guys are jibber jabbering about Cronenberg.
I hate
it's all about the passive income, baby. That's how you make the 4-hour work week work.
Money is energy, and energy. I like money because you can donate it to charity and help people and make more humans and more love.
Is that what you wrote down? If you wrote that down,
no, it's not.
It says that.
So
I would love to see a piece of paper where you wrote down like babies.
Money is good. More money for me. So I saw, unlike you two's guys, I actually went to the big time theater with the big boys and saw this movie on the big screen at the Alamo Drafthouse, which first week that it was out, it was up against Top Gun's second week and Jurassic Park's first week. So people at the Alamo Drafthouse were not there to see this movie. So I was in a theater that I think with a capacity of 40 or 50. And I was one of, I think, 4 people in the theater, which was, I always love that. That's great. Also, the thing with the Alamo Drafthouse is if you've been to an Alamo Drafthouse, they typically they produce their own content to accompany these movies. And like in the case of Everything Everywhere All at Once, which is another one I saw recently with my parents, which was awesome. They had a whole like 40-minute documentary that Alamo Drafthouse did on Michelle Kwan or whatever her name is.
Michelle Go, for the record.
Whatever. And it was really good about how she had to break in with Jackie Chan and all that and how he's an asshole. They had that for this movie. So it's clear that they went to David Cronenberg and said, we're going to promote your movie extra. We're going to show it. Will you help us make a little addendum or something? So they had interviewed him to talk about the movie. And it was clear every other time I've been to one of these fucking movies where the Alamo does this shit, it's like at least 5 to 10 minutes worth of substance. He didn't do that. The only thing you got from David Cronenberg at the beginning of the movie was like him sitting in like the Alamo Drafthouse studio, just saying, I'm David Cronenberg and I have a serious problem with the future. And that's it. And I didn't really
hate Alamo Drafthouse like me. Maybe he's opposed to them ideologically.
He hated. Why would you hate it? Why would you hate a place?
I think this is a good.
Because when I go to the fucking movie theater, I want to watch a movie. I don't want a big slot barrel for me and my pig friends to gorge ourselves and drink alcoholic beverages and hoot and holler.
Yeah, Mike.
Well, wait. So Evan, did you have anything more that you wanted to add towards the David Cronenberg?
The last thing I want to add, and we don't even have to talk about it, is that this movie, Crimes of the Future, changed my opinion of Kristen Stewart, which is a big deal because I didn't like her. And
I didn't like her. I have been in love with her for a long time. I will tell you that like I had at the time age appropriate crush on her as a sickly androgynous teen in Panic Room, And then the only time I was anti-Kristen Stewart was Twilight, because of course I'm too contrarian to be excited about Twilight. But pretty much her and Pattinson both have been like carrying independent cinema on their backs with the credibility and money that they bring ever since Twilight. I've been a fan of her and Pattinson ever since they
That's
started.
an interesting point, interesting phenomenon, right? Like they can bring in enough blood to keep it going just because of their.
And they choose to. Because other idiots, there's other big actors from other movies that try and fail to do that because they don't have any taste. It's very clear that both Pattinson and Stewart at least have an awareness and taste about what they pick that they make happen.
I've always liked Robert Pattinson. I don't like Batman. Well, we're gonna say that. I didn't know.
But I mean, that's him getting more credibility to bring to other projects. Clearly, like, I don't think he was like, I love Batman. I want to be
better. He's better in stuff like The Lighthouse.
Have you ever seen of Kristen Stewart? My favorite Kristen Stewart movie. Have you ever seen Personal Shopper?
No,
If you're appreciating Kristen Stewart, that's the best. I highly recommend that. That's an extreme. If you're into Kristen Stewart now, that's like for me, that's the peak.
Okay. All right. Well,
so, I'll also say, and this is something you will like because it is a sexually inappropriate thing to share in a public forum. Kristen Stewart is the kind of person where, like, she's very attractive. I don't, when I am appreciating her as a beautiful person, I don't think about her sexually. I don't have, because, sometimes there are people where you're like, I'm attracted to them. I imagine sexual things with them. I don't imagine her, but I think she's a beautiful person. There's something about her and the way that she's an attractive person where this is not something I think of in general. She's someone where I'm like, yeah, that's someone I would have pee in my mouth. And I don't usually think that about anybody. Where I'm like, yeah, I don't want to penetrate her. That seems inappropriate. And I don't think she would like that. But she could
You gotta see the Kristen Stewart SNL Totino's Pizza Roll commercial. YouTube Kristen Stewart SNL Totino's Pizza Rolls.
I will. I'm not going to do it right now.
I just want to say real quick for the record that Evan is a huge fan of Colin Jost and has paid money to see him in stand-up on multiple occasions.
Yeah.
Is that real? Is that true?
No, he's trying to get my goat as usual. But I hate that fucking guy. Well, I hate, SNL is it's a giant tire fire. What a fucking waste. Like, we're not even here. We need like several more podcasts to talk about that. But
yeah, I'm also talking about in my mouth reminded me I really have to pee again. So you guys talk about sports or high performance for guitar or something.
Yeah, well, anyway, SNL blows. I want to know from you, Mike, who do you think gave the most virtuosic performance in the Crimes of the Century, Crimes of the Future?
The only two actors in the movie that I could name are Kristen Stewart and Viggo Mortensen. And it's not a particularly large cast in the movie.
That's true.
So I would say, in terms of like virtuosic performance, I wouldn't say. So what that makes me think of, that makes me think of like those David Lean movies. When you think about like virtuosic performances, I think they were good performances, but I wouldn't say that anything got up to the virtuoso level.
Interesting. I thought Kristen Stewart was virtuosic in the movie. It was and maybe a little bit on the like overt her character's like aggression I thought was pretty cool. It was like watching, Jimmy.
Like watching what?
It's like watching Jimmy up on stage at the Montreal the Montreal New Film Jazz Fest, lighting that guitar. We're comparing Kristen Stewart I was comparing Kristen Stewart in Crimes of the Future to Jimi Hendrix at Altamont or whatever. It's AF time. But anyway, I wanted to ask you, speaking of peeing in the mouth, is that something that you have or done or like to do?
No, that's why it's notable that I think about it with Kristen Stewart.
I don't think there's anything wrong with that.
No, I don't either, but it's not something that I'm interested in other contexts, which is why it's notable that it occurs to me when watching her in motion pictures.
she does kind of have that. You could just kind of tell she would be, if you're going to do it, that would be the person to do that with.
Yeah, you can tell that she doesn't, I mean, understandably and correctly, she doesn't want to have sex with me. That's fine. I respect her opinion of that, having never met me and never going to meet me, but maybe
she
Dane
wants,
urine in my mouth.
she wants me, and I know that. Yeah, I know. Well, I mean, I've never met her, but let's come on. I want to. Can we send this to her now? How can we get this to Kristen? But the thing is, I say, oh, I didn't like her. I really didn't. And it wasn't just because of the Twilight thing. I just didn't dig her vibe. You know, she seems bitchy.
Did you see the Twilight movies, or what movies had you seen her in where you had accrued this opinion prior to her?
I don't remember. I knew who she was, and I didn't like it. Is that okay? Is that allowed?
No, I was just curious if it wasn't Twilight.
I saw something else with her. I can't. Anyway, 10 cheeseburgers.
Oh yeah, I almost forgot. How could I forget?
You can't do 10.
Oh wait, no, I know what I was going to say. So regarding the Alamo Draft House and their format of hog troughs and swill for the big people.
Excuse me.
I recently had the pleasure of exhibiting the 35 millimeter print that I have in my possession of the Denzel Washington, John Lithgow thriller Ricochet at the Nighthawk in New York City, which is a draft house style. The waiters creepy crawl in there with stupid little lights and the theme menu, you know, whatever. And it just reminded me that I hate that shit. And admittedly, I will admit that Draft House does it best. If you're gonna do that, they invented the best way to do it. And if there has to be done, they should do it that way. Every other imitator fucks it up, it's sloppier. But I will, and in general, I find it to be a detractor for my movie experience. But since I've seen Ricochet 1,000 times, and Ricochet, I feel like anytime drunk, normal, stupid people are watching a movie trying to hoot and holler, it's from a derivative standpoint of superiority to the movie. But Ricochet is 5 chess moves ahead of everybody and so over the top that it was Ricochet is able to subjugate even the hog trough audience of a draft house style theater.
I have two things I want to say here. The first one is that Mr. You Can't Quantify Movies said 5 chess moves ahead. So looks like
a number. I heard it too.
Ricochet. So yeah, you're
yeah, you can put that on the poster for the Blu-ray of Ricochet. It's 5 chess moves ahead of the hog trough people at the draft house.
Yeah, we can shorten it to 5 chess moves ahead. Is for the Alamo Draft House and theaters like that, is the primary grievance that you have the alcohol and it's
waiters coming into the theater serving and bussing trays of food and swill.
But
it's the non-movie related activity in general.
To be fair though, let's be fair. You don't like any concessions or even going to the bathroom during a movie, which is funny because movie theaters would not exist without concessions. That's the only reason they exist. They can't make money off movie tickets. That's the first thing you learn in like a business 101 class. So this is akin to your whole, we're coming full circle, right? It's akin to your, like, you think you're like this, like nihilist, whatever, but you don't really behave in a way that reflects it.
But I don't get concessions, so I'm fulfilling my.
But your entire lifeblood of movie going would be.
Well, how about this? Nil. How about this? Similarly, live music as an experience in America is predicated on the sale of alcohol. As someone that doesn't drink, that means you wouldn't get live music.
I love people buying alcohol. I would drink it if I could. I can't. It's literally like, I think alcohol is great. More alcohol. And I will happily pay the 2-drink minimum ticket price to go to the shows I want to go to. But it's like,
But do you think people being drunk at a show adds to your experience of the music that you're seeing?
That's an interesting question, because you don't want the crowd to be super sober either. But who wants somebody to barf on them? No, you don't. Well, it depends on the show, right? I mean, like, you want people to be loose, having a good time.
Yeah.
And maybe if they need alcohol to engage with the music isn't that good to start with. What do you think about that?
Well,
I
that's
I
on them.
just
That's their problem.
want to say something about the Alamo Draft House. So I went there with Evan. We saw the Batman, and when I was there, I ordered a chicken sandwich and some French fries, and also I threw a refill of the Diet Coke, and I was happy to receive it.
We both got a refill. Remember? We both got refills that day.
Yeah, it was the best day of my life. But okay, so I wanted to say I do have a couple lines to this as well. So when I saw Crimes of the Century at the SIF Uptown Theater, which Adam, this is where we also saw a match.
You said the name wrong too. Everybody's saying the name wrong now. Evan got it all.
Crimes of the Century. I have the okay. So I'm going to go off on separate directions here, but I'm going to take it back to the Alamo Draft House. So growing up, like, my dad is a huge Supertramp fan, and a couple things. So there's that stamp, and just saying Crimes of the Century. I think that phrase, crime of the century, is just like pretty ubiquitous. So whereas Crimes of the Future I only know about that through this movie. Anyway, I saw Crimes of the Future at the SIF Uptown, which of course is where we saw Maps to the Stars, and also where I saw the Les Miserables movie, and ran into you there, as you remember. And the thing about that theater is, like, you go in there and it's bare bones, where the concessions are like popcorn and then like the boxes of candy and whatnot. And when I see movies in there, it's like there's nothing special about the seats. It's just like a theater that was the seats and everything are 40 years old, and they haven't been updated in 40 years. And I do have a preference for that style of theater, where it's like no frills, no fuss. There are seats, there's a movie, there's a screen, and this is what's all about. So I do think that's the most pure experience, and that's my preferred way of doing that. At the same time, I did enjoy the Alamo Draft House, and I enjoyed that people were bringing me fries and Diet Coke refills. So if I go back to,
you're saying you agree with that.
Go ahead.
So you're saying you agree with Evan, is what you're telling me.
Well, I never, don't put me in the box of, I don't think that the Alamo Draft House is the best way to watch a movie. I just like to go mainly because they have the special extra content. And if you don't, it's really easy to not have the waiters come by your chair. Yeah. You just say, I don't want it.
I have not found that to be the case. I've never gotten anything at any Alamo Draft House or Alamo Draft House derivative, and somehow a waiter always asks me multiple times, and also almost always, over half the time, accidentally brings me someone else's bullshit. And when I'm like, I didn't order that, they're like, you're not, and they like have to make me like look at a name, and I'm like, no, I didn't fucking order it. Get the fuck out of here.
No, now it's different now. You just write down what you want on a piece of paper, Diet Coke, whatever, stick it in the slot, push the little button, it's there. They take care of it.
I'm talking about the reverse, where you are accidentally brought someone else's stuff. That happens.
Never happened to me. That's never happened to anybody but you.
You've been lucky. Oh, but I want to go back. I would love to hear what you think about Everything Everywhere All at Once.
Oh, I loved it. And I honestly, like, that's a whole other conversation, man. I loved it.
I don't know if have I spoiled my thoughts. Have you read anything I wrote on Letterboxd about it?
No, I haven't. Did you hate it?
I cried. I was deeply moved.
Oh yeah, no, I did. I don't remember if I cried, but I mean, I enjoyed the hell out of it on every level. And it's been a long time since I had seen a movie that I was that like, okay, this is a true 4 cheeseburger movie. Where because I was curious, because you talked about going to see it with your parents, and in a way that sounded like maybe you didn't enjoy it. And no, I loved it, and even so my parents, are a classic, Thomas Kincaid paint. Well, I wouldn't put them in that box. They're not quite that bad, but you know what I'm getting at, right? They live in suburban Wisconsin, traditional taste, and I was just.
But that's why it's an appropriate movie, because they're like they have to have their viewpoints challenged as stuck in a rut middle-aged people.
Yeah, well, but my dad in particular, I mean, he also grew up reading Kurt Vonnegut. He likes weird shit too. They both are smart. They just kind of like they cling to the sterile suburban Wisconsin fucking vibe right now. But they both loved it, you know, and they didn't do what I was afraid they would, which was after the movie be like, I didn't really get that. They actually like, you know, paid attention and thought about it. And so, yeah, we were all.
I would say that is a movie that's as challenging to follow as Crimes of the Future in terms of following the narrative.
But they liked it. They liked it. You know, I don't know if they liked it as much as I did, but we were all very happy that we went to go see it.
You know, when people when MRI scans are done on people's brains and the people feel left out socially, it activates the same parts as the brains as when they're as physical pain. And I have not seen everything everywhere at once, so I feel excluded from this conversation.
Well, you should check it out. I still find a lot of places because people keep going to see it. Oh yeah, that's the other thing I was going to say. So I saw Crimes of the Future twice. The first time I went with my one friend out here who likes to go to movies in theater, and we were the only people there. It was like opening Saturday night, 7 p.m. I was livid. I was like, we should be there early. It's going to be fucking crazy. It's a new Cronenberg movie.
It was
and furthermore, not only was the new Cronenberg movie, it's only playing at one theater in this entire state. So anyone who wanted to see it in the state of Vermont had to come to this theater on this weekend, and no one else was there. And then the next week, I went back with Izzy because I was like, it's actually really good. You should go see it. And we went a second time. And that time, there were two other people. It's in the college town part of town. It was college students. And they also said it was the first Cronenberg movie they ever seen. So at least there were two other people. But both times, evening, weekend, prime time, fucking nobody.
Yeah. I told you, man, it was same with me. Saturday night, it was me.
Yes, yeah, that's what reminded me. I meant to say that I had this experience and I don't understand it.
So, Adam, I do have a question about this. This actually jars a question that I had earlier. Is that when I look like independent movies? So I guess the question I have is about like the economics of independent movies here, and stuff like Crimes of the Future. Is I have a hard time imagining that like this movie is really going to turn much of a profit. Or same thing with like any movie like that. So like what like financially speaking, like what is the goal of this? So like what you spend like $3 million and maybe you make like $100,000.
For sure, anybody putting money into something like this just actually cares about it and kind of knows they're probably not going to make any or very much money. Mm-hmm. Like basically, it is on some level the producers of movies like this are at least on a gambling level, patrons of the arts, because you never, I mean, at least Cronenberg, he has the prestige that on a long enough timeline, it's going to somehow recoup eventually. But for sure, as we are sharing, how many people were at the theater when you went to go see it, Mike?
I would say probably 8.
Okay, so you had the most of anybody, but still
that makes sense where he lives.
I mean, but that's the thing. I'm at the theater on campus in a college town. Where are the pretentious edgelord college students going to try and see something transgressive? Does that not happen anymore?
Oh, man. So this movie.
Here we go, Mr. Numbers.
I mean, I'm shamelessly reading the Wikipedia.
I'm looking. Sorry, I'm just going to interject here real quick. I'm looking at the box office results here of the movie. So History of Violence made $62 million at the box office against like a $32 million budget. I didn't realize Eastern Promises had a $50 million budget, made $56.1 million. So that's not
Crimes of the Future has made $3.3 million. And I can't find the budget, but it's likely 10 times that at least.
Yeah. What does it say here? According to Wikipedia, yeah, $3.3 million. So I don't know the, these are
35 million.
But anyway, on the flip side, Everything Everywhere All at Once is the second movie by the filmmakers that made it, and it continues to rake in enough money that it's still in theaters everywhere. So that's why Mike probably still have an opportunity to see in the theater, because unlike Crimes of the Future, people are turning out for it. And that movie, cost more than their first movie, but I'm sure is making a lot of money because it continues to play to a lot of people everywhere.
Yeah, I need to get with it here because my fingers are no longer on the pulse of upcoming movies.
No, we just haven't been podcasting enough. We could have done a whole podcast about it.
I mean, I pretty much any art. Well, that's not true. New movies and music and shows, I rely on my brothers and you guys to tell me.
So who got you to go see Everything Everywhere All at Once then? If it wasn't me, you hadn't even read my thoughts on it on Letterboxd.
No, it was a long time ago too. I saw that shit when it first came out. It was Nick Johnson.
I saw it the week before it came out in a preview screening at the Middlebury College.
Well, I did it. Nick.
But anyway, that I want to know, given that, if what you're saying about how you find out about things, what made you go see that?
Nick said it would be good. I read a little about it, and I was looking for stuff to do with my parents when they visited. And that we were constrained by the fact that my dad's knee is fucked up and he can't really walk at many places. So we had to do stuff that didn't involve a lot of walking. So movie was a good option. And my dad is the kind of guy who absolutely does want to have a burger and a beer at the movie theater. That's something that's like not really that available to them where they live. So it worked out.
So Nick had already seen it.
I guess so, yeah. Yeah. Oh, Mike, if you see it, we should do another combo about it here on the
another podcast.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you guys know any other upcoming movies you're excited about? I have basically one on my mind.
I can remember what the hell is supposed to come out.
Yeah, I'm not sure what's coming out at all.
The one on my mind, because it came out this weekend, is Black Phone, the Ethan Hawke.
Oh yeah, I saw the preview for that. It looks tight.
Yeah, I'm excited about it. And the reviews on Letterboxd specifically cite an impressive amount of child violence, which is a huge selling point for me.
Yeah. I do like that too for a lot of reasons. I am also really excited about the movie Avatar 2.
I mean, of course we're going to podcast about that.
We got all kinds of good stuff coming out. We got John Wick 4. We've got
when is that? I haven't even heard. What's the date?
John Wick Chapter 4 coming out 2023. We've got Black Panther Wakanda Forever.
No.
We've got The Woman King. Wait a minute. Now this actually looks pretty fucking interesting. The Woman.
I saw a preview for a Louis C.K. movie called 4th of July.
Huh. I don't know anything about it.
It's like written and directed. It's not a movie that I'm particularly interested in seeing, or it's like a guy who's like estranged from his family goes back to their lake house for like 4th of July and whatnot. So it doesn't look like a particularly fun movie, but that is a movie that's
coming out next weekend for the 4th of July.
I do not know the release date, but I would assume so. Yeah, so
it was kind of weird to call it that and have it not come out on the 4th of July. But anyway, I'm excited for Black Phone, but I won't be able to see it for like a couple weeks because I'm not seeing it this weekend, and next weekend is my brother's big stupid wedding. So it'll be the week after that I can see Black Phone, but I would totally do a podcast about Black Phone. Oh, and then people at work alerted me to a really stupid looking movie I'm excited about called Smile. That's a horror movie where people compulsively smile and then kill themselves or something. It's like an MTV movie or something. It looks really stupid. They were like,
yeah. Adam, you kind of like weird movies that are a little bit off the beaten path. Like Guns Akimbo is one that I think you would really be blown away by.
Oh, man, I don't get it because I'm a dilettante and I am the person you're making fun of right now. Other movies coming out soon I want to see Creed 3, and I'm not kidding.
You guys can do that one without me.
Looks like they're remaking Salem's Lot.
I do think I heard that. I'll give it a shot.
Whatever. Anyway, William Sadler's in it. Cool.
Well, we've been so I know that like for the people that are watching this, you're gonna be like, hey.
The people that are watching Evan scroll through new releases.
Yeah, I'm done though. No, but I'm done. I'm ready to be done.
Yeah, you're thinking, we've been, this is only 90 minutes, but what you haven't seen is the 60 minutes before. So we are on 2 hours and 36 minutes here of the podcast. So I think just like a speech at the
Spent.
Academy Awards, I think we need to play the music and kind of wrap up. I'm going to go, so qualitatively speaking, just to kind of rank this movie here. I think that maybe we should change it from cheeseburgers to chess moves. That can be the as but
Maybe
I'm,
we should just play chess on the podcast. We have a chess club podcast.
so I'm all about the Karo Khan. I think that is the opening of choice. I can't forget about the French defense and also the I think the Roy Lopez, I think, has a lot of good theory behind that.
What about this? What about
Chess humor for everybody here?
the,
If you even want to call those jokes. But I'm gonna say this one here. It's on a scale of 0 to 4. Cheeseburgers are what we use instead of stars. Stars is the typical ranking, but we're using cheeseburgers here.
But we're crazy. Cheeseburger.
So I'm gonna.
Because we love the Alamo Draft House and eat a cheeseburger at every movie we go to see.
get a Royale with cheese?
I'm going to. This is a bit inspired by the cheeseburger ranking that you gave in our text thread. I am going to give this one 4 cheeseburgers. The cheese that I'm going to choose to be topping the cheeseburgers, I'm going to go with those like Kraft singles because I think those are like appropriately synthetic and are kind of like visually match some of the purple bars that they had in the movie. So it's going to be the 4 cheeseburgers. The topping on them is going to be that kind of synthetic styled cheese that like comes in those individual wrappers. So that is mine, and that's my ranking there. Overall positive. I do want to bring it back though to the movie. I did enjoy Crimes of the Century. Happy that I saw it, and I don't know where I.
But did you enjoy Crimes of the Future?
Did I say Crimes of the Century again? I can't. See, what's funny about this as well is like I completely like blacked out when I was.
I know, I can tell because when I react, you don't react to my reaction in a way that makes clear that you're unaware that you said it wrong.
I've been thinking about that because I also I think this is probably a common trend, but I noticed myself just like misspeaking and like saying something other than what I intend to say, and I'm just completely unaware of it. I think that's just evidence of like how like when you're speaking, you're not fully paying attention to what you're saying. It's kind of like when you're driving, you're not fully paying attention to the road, kind of on autopilot.
Maybe we should do the podcast while we're all driving.
I love that.
That could be.
And
How about what we do is like, we can call it something like friends in the car getting coffee, talking movies. I think we could do that. We can like get into a car, drive to the coffee shop, and that can be the podcast.
That's a long drive for me.
Mm-hmm. We could, but no, I'm with you, Adam, though, about Crimes of the Future is that, and I actually had to stop to think to myself, did I actually say that right? And I did. You have to give it a little while before I rank it within the overall Cronenberg canon. But I think that when the dust settles here, I'm going to say that these crimes are high up there.
Okay.
The floor is now yours.
how can I follow that? Yeah, it was a sexy movie, so I'm gonna give it 4 sex cheeseburgers, which is actually my specialty. If you ever come to eat at my house, I'm a little bit of a chef. Those of you who know me know that I'm a chef. And I make a special dinner called the sex cheeseburger as a secret.
How do you make it? How do you make it? What's the secret?
Chef's secret. Chef's special secret goes right on the bun. But we'll save that for another sexy podcast.
There's going to be Mike's sex podcast and Mike's food podcast, and then they cross over at the end of the season.
One is make it clear. It's called intercourse. Okay.
The intercourse cast.
Yeah, the intercourse. The intercourse cast.
I am going to not rank it, but I would do it because of what Mike said. Izzy is a very highly culinary informed and experienced person, and she cares. Hamburgers and steak are things that she has in-depth, strong opinions about, and most places she thinks do it wrong. But one thing related to what Mike said, when she makes burgers, the only kind of cheese she wants on it is a Kraft American cheese single, because although in many other ways she wants it to be the finer things, she's like, it's supposed to be a Kraft American cheese single on a cheeseburger.
Is that because it doesn't sap the taste of the burger away, like because most cheese is too strong, so you're not really tasting much meat, but a Kraft single is bland. Is that why? Because it's like it emphasizes and frames the meat rather than the cheese.
I think that's part of it. I'm trying to remember what she said. I think she just thinks that that actually goes well with it related to what you're saying. But I think in general, you know, it's not an overpowering flavor, but also I think that of the subtle flavor it provides, that is her preferred flavor to have, and texture. I think it's also a texture thing because a lot of cheese gets a little sloppy compared to just a classic Kraft American single.
There is on the subject of like the cheese here as well. So in the hometown of Racine, Wisconsin, there is of course Kewpies, and for the grill or the frying surface, I would say that they put the burgers on. They'll put for a cheeseburger, they'll like put like the square of cheese on the fryer, and then they'll like lift it up and put it on the burger itself. And I do appreciate how even after the cheese melts, it maintains the integrity, the shape of the square, put it on there as well. So that doesn't really, that's kind of a bit of a non sequitur, but I think
but
like
no, it's like a chess piece because there's a square with a circle inside it, just like the pieces on the chessboard.
yeah, it's like it's an important piece. I would say it's kind of like for the overall experience. Though you have the bun, you have the lettuce, you have the tomato. So I would say the bun is like the rook, you know, kind of on the end piece is powerful, very important. You know, the lettuce, that's like the pawns. Cheese is the knight.
Who's the king?
Evan.
Yeah.
In a burger? You're in the burger?
I'm sorry, I was reading.
Yeah, no, the metaphor kind of breaks down, but I just want to listen for all of the people that are listening to this podcast. Life is short and precious, and you decided to spend time listening to us talk, and we are grateful for that. So with that, turn the camera off, Evan.
Oh, you didn't cue the music.
Wait, who's playing it? Are you playing it or is it playing
Fade out, fade to black, guys. Count it down. There it is.